Hey, so how are we doing? So this is the video for the second set for the DC Deck Builder game, the Heroes Unite set. And just as with the original set, I'm going to go through the heroes involved, give a kind of a tier list of like which of these things I think is good and which is bad. And then I'm going to break down each of the card types and give a few picks as to what I think is really good and will basically help you win a game should you be in there. So without further ado, the heroes. So we may as well start with Nightwing. So Nightwing says the first time you play an equipment during your turn, you get +1 power. The second time you play an equipment during your turn, draw a card. It's really easy to use, is really effective. The ability to pretty much quite early in the game to start getting at least a power and then a second card is a bit of a no-brainer. There's a fair few equipment in this set, so generally you'll be able to make this trigger pretty easy, and there's not a great deal your opponents will be able to do to stop you. They're not going to be buying all the equipment. So yeah, I think easy. If you get him, you should do pretty well. Next one. Okay, Red Tornado. So we all have things in life that we don't enjoy. This is a kind of lose more card. This is a sort of hero that you want to play if you want a challenge. So if you want to make the game harder, play with this guy. So he says once during each of your turns, if there are 4 or more different card types in your discard pile, +2 power. So it can never be more than 2 power. It's really not easy to trigger, certainly early game when you'd really want it. And sort of end game, 2 powers kind of meh. So this guy he's one for the players that really want a challenge. So if you win most of the games and your other players don't, you pick this guy and let's, level the playing field. Next one, Black Canary. So Black Canary says +1 power for each different villain you play during your turn. Within Heroes Unite, there's a fair number of villains. So she's generally going to be really good, to be honest. She's really going to work for you because there's more than enough different villain types in this that you can get hold of. So in general, you're talking mid-game, end-game, you should be getting 3+ power each turn for her. So she's pretty good. If you get her, you should do okay. Next one, Booster Gold. So Booster Gold is really good, to be fair. He says basically +1 power for each defense card you play during your turn. So if for some reason you can't discard your defense cards and get their triggers, you're still going to gain an additional +1 power for each one you play on your turn, which is pretty good. However, he also says whenever you avoid an attack, draw a card. So in essence, all your defense cards are worth an additional draw a card by having Booster Gold. So this guy, Booster Gold, generally is really good. If for some reason you have an option of having him at the start of the turn or start of the game, take him because you'll just do well. Next one, Hawkman. So Hawkman says +1 for each hero you play during your turn. So he's kind of like these two, almost like the Batman and Superman from the original set. This is, say, for each different hero you play during a turn. For every hero you play during your turn. There are more heroes in this set probably than any other card type. So this is just mad. It's just the difference between him and somebody like poor old Red Tornado. They're a million miles apart. This guy is just really strong. If you have an option of playing him, you'll always do well. It's a no-brainer. Next one, Batgirl. So Batgirl says once during each of your turns, you may discard a punch card, and if you do, draw a card. Early game and even mid-game, this is, I think, better than a lot of people think. You're going to have plenty of punches in your deck. The first card you're going to get rid of is always going to be a vulnerability, so you're generally going to have punches to last you quite a while within the game. So the ability to throw one of those away to draw an extra card, especially when there are plenty of cards that put cards to the top of your deck and so on, it just provides really good value. So generally Batgirl, while it's not Hawkman, it's not that good, but Batgirl generally is really good. Last but not least, Shazam. I have a kind of bit of a love-hate with this guy. So Shazam has an ability that says you can pay 4 power, and if you do, you gain the top card of the main deck, and you can put it to the top of your deck or into your discard pile. So if the lineup is not too hot, you can always spend your 4 power to take the top card of the main deck. However, you obviously you don't get it into your hand. It goes into the top of your deck or your discard pile, which top of the deck could be great. But 4 power is a lot, and it's a bit of a gamble. Sometimes it'll really pay off, and you'll come away with a 7-cost card thinking this is the best hero, is just brilliant. Other times you'll end up with something that is just awful, that almost feels like you've just clogged your deck with something you don't need. So he's good. He's not great, but he's good, that's for sure. So those are the heroes. Next, we shall move on to some of the cards. Now, again, like I did in the first video, we'll go from some of the cheap ones up to more expensive ones. And we'll start this time with heroes again. First one, Hawk Girl. Hawk Girl costs 2. Why 2? That's ridiculous. So she says +1 power, an additional +1 power for each hero in your discard pile. Early game, she might only be worth 2, maybe 3 power. Mid-game, end game, she can end up being worth 7, 8 power easily sometimes. For a cost of 2, that is ridiculous. So if that is in the lineup for a cost of 2, you buy it. Next one, Plastic Man. What Plastic Man does is you choose an equipment in your discard pile or that you've played this turn, and Plastic Man gains the text of that card. So for a cost of 3, generally, he's always going to be drawing you a card. He's going to be worth 2+ power. And in some situations, he'll become ridiculous and he'll copy some obnoxiously strong card that just really annoys the other players. So this one, again, to me, is a great card. And unless I'm not playing equipment for some reason, that I'm more focused on superpowers or heroes, generally, if Plastic Man's there, I tend to buy him. Next, Deadman. So probably quite aptly named. Deadman costs 4. He gives you 2 power, which is, that's okay. But when you buy or gain the card, you get to destroy up to 2 cards in your hand or discard pile. That's bonkers. That is so strong. Mid-game, end-game, you may have the ability to get rid of Deadman. Cool, just get rid of him. Put him in the destroy pile and potentially bring him back into your hand to get rid of some more cards if you needed to do that. But when you get him sort of early mid-game, the ability to get rid of the 2 worst cards that you've got from your deck is fabulous. So that is a really strong card. Next, Wonder of the Night, kind of a Nightwing card. He basically says for a cost of 5, you put an equipment from your discard pile into your hand and draw a card. So generally, you're going to be taking your best equipment from your discard pile, which you can't complain with. That's just great. And in addition, you're going to draw a card. So potentially before you even do that, you could put a card to the top of your deck with some of the other cards in the set. There's plenty of ways to manipulate this card. So for a cost of 5, I think that's extremely strong. So well worth getting. And then last but not least for heroes, Kyle Rayner. So this set comes with several powerings, which we'll get onto in a bit. And for a cost of 7, which is not cheap, Kyle Rayner says, right, you gain 3 power. And then for each different powering in your discard pile or that you've played this turn, you gain an additional 2 power. It's just great. What can you say? It's just fantastic. So you're always going to really, by the time you can afford this guy, the chances are he's going to be worth a minimum of 3 to 5 on your turn. Mid-end game, he's going to be worth more, and he's really good. He also has one last line that says, if you have played 3 different powerings this turn, you win the game. Don't get too het up on that one. It sounds fantastic, and occasionally you may make it work. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to trigger that. However, it's still a great card. So if you're buying that sort of a deck and you've got that sort of hero, yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Next one, I shall do the villains from the set. So again, we're going to start with a 2-cost villain, Ocean Master. So Ocean Master says for a cost of 2, you gain 1 power, but if you've played or have played another villain this turn, you can destroy a card in your hand or discard pile. There are a lot of villains in this set. That is not difficult to trigger. certainly mid-game, and the ability to keep playing it and keep destroying cards in hand or discard pile for a cost of 2. That's potentially the best villain in the deck for me for its cost. And the fact that you can use it so early in the game is great. Next one, Granny Goodness. Who doesn't love a bit of Granny Goodness? So she basically says for a cost of 5, remove a hero or villain from the lineup, play it, and then return it at the end of your turn. So you're basically looking at the best hero or the best villain, and you gain that card text. 4 times out of 5, when you play this, that'll really work for you. It'll be great. Occasionally you'll play, and it'll be kind of meh, not doing a great deal. But in general, she's good and she's versatile. She'll give you options within whatever's in the lineup to be able to play on your turn, which is useful. So yeah, Granny Goodness, just good. And last but not least for the villains is Black Lantern Corps. So this card costs 6. Says for 6, again, 2 power and attack. Each 4 gains a weakness, which is good, kind of like Scarecrow from the first set, but it costs 1 more. However, it does have the other card text that it says, if 1 or more foes do not gain a weakness, draw a card. So even if they defend, you're still gaining an extra boon from this card. So again, Black Lantern Corps is another one of those cards that if it's available and you can afford it and you've got a few villains and so, just get it. It just works. Next, I will go on to, in fact, let's do the superpowers. So there are a lot of good superpowers in this, but here's a few that I really rate. First of all, Force Field. Cost 3. When you play it, draw a card. However, once you've played it, it has an ongoing ability that says you don't discard it at the end of turn, and you can use it as a defense to discard it from play into your discard pile to avoid an attack. Having a defense card there when you need it is just great. Why would you not do that? So if you can get a Force Field, it pays for itself when you play it, and it's a bit of a no-brainer. Just gives you that defense when you need it. Next up for a cost of 5, Starbolt. So Starbolt says +2 power and additional +1 power for each superpower in your discard pile. Not different superpower for every superpower in your discard pile. So again, Starbolt is just great. It's never really going to be worth 2 power with kicks in the game and so on. This is always going to be worth generally a minimum of 3 when you play it. For a cost of 5, that's okay. But sort of mid-end game, it'll end up being worth a heck of a lot more. And is a no-brainer. If it's there and you're playing that sort of deck, you just buy that. And then the last 2 are kind of, I'm putting both up at the same time. So we have Shazam and Teleportation. So Shazam says for a cost of 7, very expensive, you get 2 power and you reveal and play the top card of the main deck and then put it back on top. So that's good. Occasionally you will play it and go, nah, I've not got so much from that. And occasionally you'll play it and get completely the opposite and go, wow, that's been a ridiculous turn. I kind of think 7 is almost a little bit too much. It is a little bit of a random chance. However, you're always gaining 2 and you're not necessarily having to stick with the card that you get. So out of the 2, Shazam for me is almost preferable. Teleportation says, for a cost of 7, you gain the top card of the main deck and put it in your hand. You gain nothing particularly from this in terms of power for playing it, but you are gaining the top card straight into your hand. Again, like Shazam, sometimes you will play this and think, wow, that is awful. What have I actually gained? That is actually clogging my deck. And there are several cards in this set that really, there are multiples of them that you really don't want unless you're playing specifically those cards. So I can find an awful lot of the time that teleportation is a little bit frustrating and isn't, again, worth 7. However, occasionally you'll play it, you'll top deck a ridiculously good card straight to your hand, and it will give you a fantastic turn. So again, it's one of those that I'm a little bit undecided. Next, we'll move on to the equipment. So equipment-wise, we'll start with these because they're generally all great. So we have, this is how many power rings we have in this set. We've got 7 power rings. in general, they're all good. If a powering is in the lineup, bite. For a cost of 5, and they all cost the same, they have a multitude of different abilities. All of them tend to be worthwhile. Some are definitely better than others, but generally the powerings just work, and it's nice to stop your opponents from getting hold of them because they are really quite good. So if at all possible, buy them. Don't let your opponent get them. In terms of the other equipment, a couple that really I really enjoy playing with. First one is Soul Taker Sword. For a cost of 4, you're getting +2 power, which is, that's okay. But you do have the ability that you may destroy a card in your hand. So if you've got a really good set of cards, you don't have to destroy them. However, this will let you take one of them out and destroy it, which if you've got a weakness or you've got a starter card, again, it's a no-brainer. There is a bit of card destruction in this set, but for me, certainly early game, mid game, if that's in the lineup, I am going to be buying it. I need rid of those starter cards ASAP within this set because there are some quite expensive and real desirable cards. Most of all for me, which is this one, Mind Control Hat. So cost 7, which is not cheap again. However, it's got quite a lot of text. First part of the text says, draw 2 cards. Yeah, I'll take that. So cost of 7, draw 2 cards. That's great. It's then got an attack. Each 4 discards a card at random. That's just so good. The number of times this messes people up is just fantastic. And then the last bit of text says that if you have played or played Jervis Tetch this turn, you can play each hero and villain in the lineup and then return them. That's just daft. If this card's available, buy it. Even in this card, even if it's in a crisis, just buy it. It's just that good. It's a no-brainer. Mind Control Hat. It's just daft. And then last but not least, I've pulled out again a couple of the locations that I think are the better ones out of the set. There is again a location for every type of card, but for me again, best ones are New Genesis. So New Genesis is the location that says once you turn, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a hero, draw it. If not, discard it. They don't sound as good as the cards from the original set that if you play a hero, draw a card. However, knowing what the top card of your deck is in this set in particular is extremely useful. And the fact that if you don't like what you see, you can discard it, which means if you're top decking a weakness or a starter, you can just choose to, I'll get rid of it. Makes these better than people think. So these generally are, and you don't need a hero to trigger it, remember. Just once in your turns, you can reveal the top card. And if it's a hero, draw it. Otherwise, discard it. That's just a really good card. And the other one that I really like from the locations in this set is, pronounce that as you will, O, not sure. This is an ongoing ability at the start of your turn. If the top card, the supervillain stack, is a cost of 10 or greater, you draw a card. Why wouldn't you have this for a cost of 5? So after the first villain's gone, generally, you're going to be drawing an extra card at the start of each of your turns. Yeah, why not? It's just great. If that's there, you just buy it. And those are the superheroes and the cards and the picks from the Heroes Unite set for the DC Deckbuilder game. So I hope you've liked it. Again, if anyone watches this and they've got any thoughts, I'd love to know what you think. All right, take it easy and I'll catch you soon. Okay.